Welcome to TruckU. I'm Matt Steele.
Hi, I'm Bruno Massel.
Now today in the shop we're working on this little gem right here. It's a 2005 Dodge Ram 3500. Nice truck.
Yeah, it's our buddy's work truck. Well, it's his play truck too. I mean, he runs this thing just about every day at work. He's pulling a heavy load, 15,000-pound dump trailer, and on the weekends he's pulling a toy hauler. So this thing's taking a beating just about every day of the week.
He's using it for what it was designed to do, man. That's
Exactly.
cool. We like that about him. But here's the situation that he's in. It's an 05, so the warranty's gone. All right, he's got, what, a couple of more payments on this, right? So he's got a situation here where he can go out and buy a brand new truck and strap himself into another payment for 5 or 6 years. He doesn't want to go that route, or he can do a little upgrade to this and keep it on the road a lot longer. And I think that is going to be the way to do it.
Now, this thing's only got 150,000 miles on it, and I say only 150 because these engines are good for 1 million miles.
Right.
The problem is all the auxiliary stuff around it. That's where they start having problems at this point. You're talking about the exhaust housing, the turbo, the transmission. So rather than replace the OEM parts with more OEM parts that they're going to fail another 150,000 miles, well, we can get a serious upgrade in terms of performance at about the same price.
And we're going to do that with this system right here from ATS Diesel Performance. And you take a look at this, it's got everything we need. We've got the turbo, we've got, you know, the exhaust manifold there, you got the arc flow, we've got an intercooler sitting over there, and all this stuff right here is going to go right into this, where this big hole is.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed, we've done a little work to get started on this thing. Now, we took off the exhaust manifold and the turbo and all the stuff off of this side here, and first thing we found right off the bat is we had a little problem with this V-band clamp that holds the whole system together. The split here was allowing a lot of that boost pressure to come out. The system wasn't sealed up, and as a result, he had a loss of power. So a little thing like this can cause you some headaches, but we're going to put all new parts in and take care of all the problems on this truck.
Now that we've got everything out of the way, it gives us a great opportunity to take a look up close and personal with the new system from ATS.
Well, you'll notice right off the start here is we've got some upgraded parts over our OEM, and first of all being the exhaust manifold and then this big turbo right here. Now, one of the problems with the OEM exhaust manifold, first of all, it's weak. Second of all, it cracks. That's not a good thing.
Well, it's one solid piece, right? And you think about it, it's heating up and cooling down, so it's expanding and contracting. And some of the metal here is thicker than other places. And in the areas where the metal's thin, it's going to crack. And that crack, you may not even know that it's cracked, but that's going to give you a couple different problems.
Yeah, first you'll notice a loss in fuel economy, and if you have a boost gauge in the vehicle, you'll see a boost go down, right, and you'll see a loss in power. And usually people think, well, I lost the turbocharger, I need to replace it. Well, all they have is a crack in their manifold, and they usually don't notice it until it gets so bad where you start seeing black smoke or you can actually hear it. Either way, it's a bad situation. So what ATS Diesel has done is they've cast one out of high silicon moly, which is much stronger, about 3 times more than the cast iron one. They also use a 2-part system right here with a ball joint in the middle, which allows it to flex. So this will expand and contract with the heat, it won't crack, and it'll keep your turbo system fully sealed up.
Big advantages in that, and big advantages in this too, because you take a look at this, especially on the compressor side. I mean, there's advantages all over, but we'll look at this one first of all. At the size of the volute, now that's the opening, right, where the air is getting compressed and it's cramming down in here. Now, flow dynamics will tell you that when the air is coming through here, when it changes direction and when it's expanding really fast, if it expands too fast, it's going to tumble over itself, and it gets kind of weird. It just doesn't go where you want it to go. When you want to expand that air and you want to direct it, it's got to be very gradual, almost like in a cone shape. And you take a look at that, that's exactly what goes on here. So it's getting compressed, and as it's being crammed through there, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it gets up here to this corner where it's a nice big opening, and you're just forcing and directing that air nice and smooth right where you want it to go.
Right, it's all about airflow, and the same thing can be said about the turbine side here. Not only is it bigger, but it's got a smoother radius going all the way through. So at lower boost pressures, this turbo will actually put out a lot more power. Also, what's nice about it is direct replacement for this one.
Yeah, this baby's going to drop right in. Now we're ready to start the install, and it all begins with this exhaust manifold. Now you've got these gaskets that are going to line up all the way down just like that. Now there is a raised side on the gasket, and you want to make sure that the raised side that you can feel goes towards the block. So we'll hang those in there in a second. What I did was I got one started down here on the start and one down here kind of towards the back side. That way I can hang this manifold on there and get the weight of it on those bolts. Then it'll be a little bit easier to get the rest of the gaskets and the bolts in place. Now, another advantage that we have is right here. The guys at ATS, right where the EGT hooks in, they added metal right there. So they've made a housing for it, so it's good and sturdy where everything screws in. You know, on the stock one, it was just drilled right into the side of it, and that can make a weak point. You can get some cracks, and it's not going to happen on this system right here. So once you get this in place, you're ready. You just drop your probe in, boom, and you tighten that baby down, and this is ready to roll.
Now this turbo install is really a do-it-yourselfer's dream because it simply bolts into place. You don't have to do any cutting, any modifying of any charge tubes or downpipes. It does what it's supposed to do. It fits. Now this gasket needs to go up into place here, and we'll kind of hang it on the studs and then drop the turbo into place. You see here. There we go. Get one of the nuts on it. Now, we talked about some of the benefits of this turbo. One of the things we didn't mention is the fact that it's going to give you better throttle response because it's going to have quicker spool up time. Also, a big benefit to these diesel trucks these days is lower EGTs. One thing also, it's got an exclusive 3-year, 150,000-mile warranty, so you know this thing will keep going for a long period of time, and it'll keep our owner here pretty happy for a long period of time. So his investment is well worth it. It's covered. Got that side?
Yep.
All right.
This Sub-Zero intercooler, also from ATS, is the next step for us right here. First thing we had to do was get this existing one out of the way, and you take a look at these two side by side and you can see the advantages of the Sub-Zero.
Yeah, first of all, the Sub-Zero is physically just much larger. It goes deeper, and it's also got a much thicker core, which is going to give you more surface area to cool down the charge coming in. And hold on, one last thing I want to show you guys real quick is the tanks. Now the tank is much bigger here, and it tapers down to the bottom of the intercooler core itself, where in the factory it pretty much chokes off in the bottom, doesn't allow you to use the bottom half of the intercooler really, and it creates a restriction. That doesn't happen with this core right here.
And these tanks right here are all aluminum as well. So, you know, some of the older models of these had plastic tanks on the side. Even these metal ones right here, if you're running a bigger charger and your whole system is running at over 40 PSI, for example, you can blow out these tanks, and you're not going to have that problem with these right here. This is all going to hold up.
Yeah, this is rated, believe it or not, up to 100 pounds. So guys with the big turbochargers on there making 60, 70 pounds of boost, you don't have to worry about it.
Now, think about this. No matter how hot things are getting, there's so much surface area right here that no matter what, when it all goes back into the intake, it's going to be at ambient temperature right there. That's the name of the game.
Right.
So you're talking about big time drops in the temperature. On the intake side, for every 1 degree in temperature drop, you get a 1.5 degree temperature drop on the exhaust side, and that is big because think about it. That means the whole system is running cooler and more efficiently, which is going to give you more horsepower and better fuel economy. Now, as far as the entire circulation of the system goes, we're almost done. Really, the next step in the whole evolution of things is right here on the intake manifold. And you take a look, here's the existing one that we're going to replace, and we're going to do that with this. It's the ATS Arc Flow. This is much better. Now, we talked earlier about flow dynamics and restrictions with airflow. So the air's coming up here, it's getting into this corner, and it's starting to roll over itself. Then it hits this corner, and it's rolling. It's just one big hot mess. Now, also, take a look at this. Big time restriction right there. That's where the bolts go. So all the air, it's like it's going through a little narrow doorway. It all gets bunched up and then shoved down in there. There's a much better way to do that, and it's right like here. You take a look at this, nice and smooth, right around there, nice even flow, no restrictions. Now another good thing about this is it's all pre-drilled, so you take a look at the top. If you want to do a water or nitrous or anything like that, you can do that. On the back side, for your boost gauges and everything is pre-drilled for you, which is nice because even if you're not going to use any of this stuff, a lot of guys don't want to tap and drill and do all that. You don't have to on this. So all we have to do is slide that out of the way and put this in place.
Now that we've got our turbo system all in place, there's one more thing we're going to do underneath the hood, and that's install the Atomizer power module from ATS Diesel. Now what you have to do, it's pretty simple. It's just a few connections underneath the hood and you're about done. Now what this system does, it actually gives you more horsepower whether you've got a stock engine or one souped up like this, or if you're running another power adder or power module like the Edge product right here. So it works together with it. Now this system plugs into your boost sensor back here, and then it also plugs into your fuel rail sensor as well. And The way it works is it tracks boost pressure and increases your fuel rail pressure to keep up with it. So it's actually giving you more fuel pressure with the increased boost and doing it with a finer spray so the fuel atomizes inside the engine. Now, how it works with a product like the Edge it works a little bit differently. It controls fuel as well, but it does it by opening the injector. And what it does, it holds it open longer, allowing more fuel to come out. Now, if you've got the injector held open longer and you're using more fuel pressure to shoot it into the engine, you're going to get more fuel, more power, and you're going to get a finer spray. It'll be better atomized, better consumed by the engine, give you more power. So once you make these plugs here, all you have to do then is go underneath the dash and tie in this control right here. What the control does is allow you to ramp in slower or faster how much power you want to put to it. It's just that simple. I'm going to go ahead and continue doing our little connections underneath the hood. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to show you guys the last pieces of the puzzle of our entire towing package from ATS Diesel. Welcome back to TruckU, and right now we've got a cool view of the inside of a torque converter. You don't get to see it often, and torque converters can be a bit complicated to explain. So I brought in the president and the chief engineer of ATS Diesel, Clinton Cannon, to explain to us the inner workings of the 5-star torque converter. Tell me a little bit about this. First of all, what differs from the 5-star to the one that we're going to be pulling out of this truck?
You know, torque converters are really pretty basic. You have the fluid coupling portion of it. This is hooked to the engine. This is kind of like a big hydraulic fan. Then this is a fan that absorbs energy from the engine to the tranny. So you have your fluid that exits the impeller, drives the turbine, and then it's redirected through the stator, and that's essentially what gives you your torque multiplication, or your stall speed.
Okay.
And that stall speed is pretty much the point that you accelerate and the engine revs up and it moves forward, and that's kind of where your stall speed changes. Well, with the viscous drive, you have 5 clutches here, and the factory torque converter will have 1 clutch.
Okay.
So if you were to remove all these clutches and you bonded one to the piston, as that squeezes together, that basically gives you your 1-to-1 connection when you get up to speed.
Okay. So that's your lockup, so to speak.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what we've done with the 5-star is we've kind of integrated the two of them. We have 5 discs here that actually interlock in a mesh, and then you have fluid between them. And there's what you call the eddy viscosity fluid action that happens as the clutch plates are spinning together. And so you have power transfer on the clutch side of it, and you have power transfer on the fluid side of it. So when you put the two of them together, you have optimal stall speed, and then you have an increased torque multiplication that accelerates it so you don't have all that slippage like you do on a factory truck.
Like what you were saying with the Cummins, that a lot of times you at a stoplight and you get in a throttle, the motor starts to scream because it over revs the torque, or over revs the lockup. Am I right?
Exactly.
So that's where this comes into play. It essentially slows down the torque curve.
Right. What it does, it kind of brings the efficiency and the stall speed and the torque multiplication together. So when you accelerate, you get more units of energy, in essence, from the engine to the rear wheels. So when you accelerate, instead of that energy going into the torque converter and generating all this heat, it actually goes into the torque converter and it comes out the back of the torque converter with increased power.
I got you. Okay. Now, explain to us, there's a lot of things that make this an upgrade over stock. Obviously, all the clutch plates in the back end, but some of the hard parts like this stator here, I know this isn't factory. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the factory stator is actually fairly narrow between the impeller and the turbine, so this ring is about the width of it. What we've done is we've redesigned this so it actually will take the fluid and allow it to redirect efficiently. And then between the two vanes, we have actually laid those back just like a compressor will in a turbo.
Okay.
So you don't have the choke. And by not having that choke, you never slow the fluid down as it's making the rotation through the converter.
So technology from the turbo goes right in here.
Exactly. That's exactly where this came from. As a matter of fact, we use what we call a little inducer vane in a turbocharger, and there's a vane that actually utilizes the fluid or the air to be picked up efficiently. We kind of do it in reverse. So as that fluid is redirected off the turbine and back into the engine, opposite engine rotation, it just makes a nice even swoop and it increases the efficiency.
Well, I think all we have to do now is place this together. I'll get the welder and we should be ready to go, huh?
I think so.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
There we go.
All right, so we kept those two up top. That way nothing would fall down on us. There's a nice little tip there. You got that, dude?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to come right out?
Hold on to it? Yep.
Sure. Now what we're going to do is replace the stock diff cover with this. Now take a look. Before you drop that down, man, hold on. Hold that up there. Take a look at the size of this thing, because that's the first thing you notice is, look at this. This ATS diff cover totally encompasses that stock diff cover right there. I mean, it's huge. That's going to hold a lot more fluid.
Yeah, the increased volume you're going to get from increased fluid volume along with this strips right here will help dissipate heat. So a much cooler operating temperature and keep that diff living a lot longer by keeping those operating temperatures down.
Sure. I mean, there's the heat sink right there, and there's little cool things too, like the fill plug plug and the drain plug are magnetic. So if there's any little pieces of metal floating around, they're going to stick to that and we'll find them. Now, speaking of metal.
Man, right now everything looks pretty good. I'm not seeing anything really shiny inside there. It doesn't look like there's a lot of wear on the gear itself. I think this thing's in pretty good shape.
Good.
Just a matter of cleaning it up and make sure we have a nice clean surface to mount the new one too.
I tell you what, the whole ATS system went in nice and easy, everything bolted in and in place, and it was fun to install too. I'll tell you, I do think that our buddy's going to love the increased performance that he gets from this. I mean, how can he not?
Right.
Gee, that was a little creepy. And take a look.